Hello. Welcome to our very first episode. We're going to be talking about some really important topics today. And before we start, I just want to kind of give a little disclaimer because the views and information or opinions expressed are solely those of the individuals involved and do not represent absolute fact. The Gabby Petito Foundation and its guests do not imply endorsement or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. The material information presented here today are for general information purposes only. Content warning, we're going to be talking about sensitive topics, so that's just a trigger warning for you. If you don't want to watch, if you want to fast forward through things, that's fine too. And if you're in danger, don't watch this. Please call 911. If you need help with DV for yourself or for someone else, call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-SAFE. And you can also chat with them. You can go to thehotline.org or text START to 88788. I'm going to put that up on the screen for you because that's really important. And today I'm going to introduce a couple of awesome people that I got to meet along the way. And Tara and I met these two probably a while ago. I know, like Stephanie, even though she's from Texas, I met her way back in the beginning.
I don't think I've ever seen Stephanie in person, but definitely a lot phone calls. So, and she's amazing.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to meet her. She came to visit Florida, and I got to go see her and her sweet little girl. So that was nice. So what we're going to be talking about mainly here is post-separation abuse. And this is a topic that I really didn't think about, to be honest. And we have Bevin coming on too, and she's going to tell you a little bit about her story. And then we're just going to have a conversation. All right. So I'm going to introduce Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie.
Stephanie.
I'm also going to add Bevin in, but Stephanie, I'm going to let you introduce yourself as soon as I let Bevin on, and then Bevin, you can pipe in.
Okay.
Hey, Bevin.
Hey, ladies. Hi. So, I'm Stephanie Kegley. I am down over here in Fort Worth, Texas, and yeah, I have a story, but more so how I got connected with Nicole and Tara and everything is I watched Gabby's story unfold, and I remember when they released the body cam footage, I was like screaming, like, how can you not see by Gabby's body language? And y'all actually posted something on y'all's foundation page, and I screenshotted that and sent that to you, Nicole. But I privately messaged, because I was currently in a domestic violence marriage. I messaged y'all like, this is what, areas that need improved. And then 6 months later, I was facing it with my god sister, Marissa, and it was Nicole coming to me during that time and helping me navigate all of that. And we've been just together since. And so I'm glad to be here, and, lost somebody to it, kind of went through it as well. And so I'm hoping that my story will be able to help others.
It will. That's why we're here.
Yes, absolutely.
And my wonderful, wonderful friend, Bevin.
Beautiful person.
So I remember back when everything was going on with Gabby, and I remember the day they found her. And I sat at my kitchen table and I cried. And I told my husband that could have been Megan, because we had a couple of bouts of time where Megan had been missing. And then 6 weeks later, 8 weeks later, it was Megan. And she wasn't missing, but she was killed by her ex-boyfriend. And the irony in the fact that we all lived 15 minutes apart. It's like nothing. And I'm grateful for people connecting me to you and the friendship we've formed. And just to be a part of this journey with some great women who we're all about to change the face of domestic violence. And it's in honor of our loved ones.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you. It's unfortunate that this is the way that we met, but I am grateful for meeting you wonderful ladies. I know that our loved ones are shining down on us always, and they're leading our path to help create all of this awareness. They're going to keep doing so because we're not going to stop. We're going to keep going, right? We're going to just, that's why we're here, so we can talk about these, extremely difficult topics, but they need to be spoken about. We need to talk about them. We need other people to hear them. We need to let other people know that they are not alone, that there are resources out there, and get the conversation going. So, but I thank you ladies for both being here.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to have these conversations. That's why we're breaking the silence, because somebody could hear what any one of us have to say, and it could help them. So
yeah, so, it just takes one word, one sentence to relate to, and they're like, I got to get out of here.
I didn't know when everything was happening. I didn't know that the most dangerous time to get out of a relationship was when you leave. The most dangerous part of the relationship is when you leave. I had no idea. I know Joey had made a statement at Gabby's service about it, and we wound up getting death threats from domestic violence abusers because we were telling them to leave. So now we made sure that we clarify, have a plan. Have a plan, a safety plan. You can't, unfortunately, it is the most dangerous time. So
it is
because they lose control. It's a power and control issue.
Yes.
And when you leave, they're losing that power.
Yep.
And that control.
And they still take that power with them even after if you are able to break away and you have a plan and you have that safety, especially if you have like kids, there's other forms of abuse that you'll be entering into next, and it's still not safe. And that's what we need to talk about is.
Unfortunately, it can go on for years. They can still torment you for years.
Yep.
And that is the scary part. And that's something that I think we need to work on.
So Stephanie, I know we've been talking back and forth for a while now, and if you want to kind of talk about some things that you maybe could help people understand an intimate partner separating, what does that look like sometimes when it's an abusive partner?
Yes. And so, it's hard, because whenever you finally realize what kind of, that you're in this very dangerous situation, that your life, and if you have children, your children's lives are at risk, and so it's a lot of methodical planning, if you are financially abused in this, it's how to save money, how to plan this, in my experience, I didn't go to the police because protection orders, restraining orders, that's just a piece of paper. I mean, Marissa had that. And even having that, she was missing for 10 days before they did anything. And that's solely because, thanks to you guys, her story went viral, and so firsthand, like I got to see how that worked. And so in my opinion, in looking at things, it's getting that plan, getting all of those safety nets, so that way once you're able to exit, you have all of these things to protect you. However, there is that post-separation abuse. There is wills, there's research studies on it, and in regards to, say, a divorce with a child in there, that's when you're going to start to see other things. You're going to start to see, you're going to be hit with allegations of alienation by your abuser, you're keeping my child away from me for this, and this reason. You're, going to be almost persecuted. A lot of times the abuser turns themselves and plays victim. They're going to blame you for their actions. So um, the best thing that I could say is to have a good support system. I have you guys that I can lean into, and therapists and all of that, but having that good support system to back you up is everything, because your abuser is now playing victim.
Wait, and know that they are going to try to isolate you away from your support system.
Exactly.
They are going to try to they're going to gaslight you. They're going to say things about your relatives or your family or your friends to try to keep you as far away from them as possible, so you don't have a support system. That's another thing that they will try to do.
Yes. I mean, in my experience, mass texting family members, going after my family members, things of that nature, like they'll do anything to make you isolated, to make you look like the crazy person, even to your own family. The good thing though is it's your family. They see everything, and they see what's being done, but there's no link that they won't go to. There's no narrative that they won't seek to try and make it look like it's the victim's fault. Even fabricating stories, like, you got to think that when you're dealing with people like this, that it's all about image. It's about how they're perceived.
Yep.
And once you speak up and about that, you will be hit. Your image will be hit, and they will try to destroy you. But the beauty of it is, and what I always say is evidence. Keep the evidence. Voice notes, voice recordings, pictures. I was able to have my laptop locked, password ready, and I kept everything on there, that if I didn't make it out, everything was there. And I mean, you can do, there's so many.
And you have to know too that if you can't save it on your phone, try to get it to someone that can save it for you.
Exactly.
And so you can delete everything off of your phone, just because you never know. They get into your phone and see it. They might delete it on you, or they might use it against you and abuse you even more. So.
Yep, exactly. And so I always say, make up an email account, give it to a trusted friend, just email everything through there.
Yep.
Or Facebook message everything, and then just delete your message thread, but the other person keep it. There's so many ways that you can keep your evidence safe, so that way if your abuser does manage to get into your devices, you're safe. If they delete it, that's okay, because you've got that backup. And that's what's really most important, is just building that support system around you as you're exiting that. Other things that you can face when it comes to both post-separation abuse is, especially if there's a child involved, is you get the alienation, false alienation claims hit on you when it's their own doing. Then you start to see kind of neglectful or almost abusive parenting styles. What is a good example? A good example is taking a young kid to a rock concert where there's drugs and alcohol and mosh pits, things like that. Something that, like, no parent should take a very young child to. There's other examples that I could probably give, but it's now what they are doing is now the child becomes the pawn to them, of like, what can I do to this child, or take this child and do this, because it's a jab at the mom. It's the jab because I know it's gonna it's going to make mom mad because, we already had this discussion, or, things of that nature. So it's always about revenge for them. How can I get my victim to be aggravated or mad?
That's really scary too, to be able to go through that, because that's your baby, and
exactly,
that's difficult.
Yep, and in the law's eyes, and our justice system, they will sit there and say, I wouldn't even trust them to babysit my child for an hour with their behaviors, but nothing can be done until she's injured or he is injured. Nothing can be done with your child, despite all of it, until they're hurt by them, and then something can be done. And I'm just like, whoa, just learning all of this, it's mind blowing. You have that isolation factor in it, harassment and stalking that comes with it. That's a big one. That's where, you gotta just be mindful of your surroundings. In my opinion, I in my situation, I guess you could say, I have cameras everywhere. Learn self-defense, be mindful about what you do, if your abuser has access to your phone and phone records, like if you guys are on like a family plan still, what you need to do is like text now apps that you can't see, but that the carrier will show you, because the carrier will show you text messages that are going in and out, every phone call that's going in and out. How you can get around that and protect people and protect how you call is using apps until you're separated from them, from that family plan. We see in newer cars, a lot of our newer cars have GPS systems linked up to the app. So like I have a fancy little app that I can start my car from. I can look at locations, things of that nature. But when I go to Ford, I don't know if I can mention that, but when I go to the, dealership, there's nothing that they can do. They can't take that GPS out. They can't anything. And so it's really trying to that's where you got to, to me,
you got to get creative in a way, figure out your safest options, because everything is electronic, especially on the newer cars. I know mine has the same app where I could start it from inside a building. I can locate it. I can follow my map to it. It's scary if you're leaving an abusive situation. I can imagine that's frightening.
Yeah. I even have my front door, like my lock is, it can go on an app.
Yes.
Code on an app. So I won't set it up because I think it's too scary, and I'm so nervous that anybody could ever get into it. But if there's a will, there's a way, and that's the scary part.
Exactly. Yes. Yep.
Especially if you're in a situation that is dangerous, where you don't want them coming in at any point in time.
Yes. Yep. And then there's, of course, the financial abuse part of that. I think, we've always talked about that, but whenever it comes to separation and everything like that, I've seen it happen where the abuser is able to just take all the funds, move all the funds, hide the funds, all of that stuff, do secret bank accounts, things of that nature. So it's very important to try to build however you can with that safety net, especially if you're being financially abused. One of the things that I love is and did was buy gift cards. They can't see when you go to a grocery store, they can't see, if you accidentally lose that receipt, they can't see it itemized. The gift card doesn't show up differently on the checkout. So you can buy a Visa gift card or whatever it may be to help kind of build you some money in that background. If you're unable or not allowed to work, or if you do work, if they still control the bank accounts, things of that nature. And then post separation, it's all about gaining your independence back, trying to find a job that fits, budgeting, and it's hard. I won't even lie. It's hard.
And you got to hope that they're not going to go harass you at your new
Yes.
system of employment, where to the point where you get fired because of it. So
Exactly.
that's the other.
Yep, exactly. And then with protection orders, you can in restraining orders, you can put these addresses down, but once you put that there, they're going to know exactly where you're at, because they have to serve that and say, okay, you can't come around this distance from it, and so it's just it's like a long game, and especially when there's kids involved. So it's like, how do I tread lightly and try to find some calm in all of this? You beg for it to be civil, and it really never is, because it's just a game to them. They lost control, and so now they're like, how do I do everything possible to destroy them? And that's where you see a lot of legal abuse. And that's where it's not talked about too, is the way our justice system is set up for leaving abuse. Like, at least down here in Texas, there's no separation. You have to be in that trial room, in that courtroom with your abuser. There's no taking you out or videoing you in, or there's nothing. You have to, you're right there, 10 feet apart from your abuser. And this is where you'll start to see like false allegations coming into play. That's where you see that counter parenting and the court, I can never say that word, coercive parenting.
Coercive.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, an example is the things that I have faced. I went in there and I was made to look like the gypsy rose disease, that Munchausen.
Munchausen.
Yeah.
I can't even say it. I was made to look like that. Day one, it was just attacking me with false allegations that was clearly and easily disproven, and debunked and everything like that. And I walked out of there with primary custody, and your abuser or your husband has the right to appeal that decision. And when you face an appeal trial, at least in the state of Texas, you do have to, your person, your spouse or whatever, they get like 45 minutes to an hour to take the stand. And just, for me, it was lies after lies after lies. And you just have to sit there and take it. Because if you make a move, for me, it made me nauseous. It made me feel like I wanted to throw up. But, and I was like, having a panic attack and wanting to leave. And that's what they're feeding off of, because they know your little tics and things like that. But you have to have, and that's why it's so good to have that support system around you, because you can't make those moves, because you're just falling into exactly what they want you to do.
Now, are you able to have an advocate with you? Anybody to stand next to you to pretty much hold your hand?
Yeah, I haven't had that. No, I have not had that choice or anything yet. It was just me and my lawyer. But no, it's kind of very strict. Even like, I had a family member, my mom, for support, but she's, in the back in the seats and things of that nature. But no, there's no advocate there or anything like that. You're not really allowed to talk or anything. You just got to sit there and go through it and just listen to it. And my best advice is bring a notepad, write down all of the stuff that's false, like, that they're trying to put on you, and write it down. And the best thing that I have ever done is I am very bad with deleting stuff. I can pull up a text message I sent 4 years ago, or that I received 4 years ago, and that has played the biggest part in this, because it's like if I'm hit with something, I'm able to find it in my phone and just disprove that claim very easily. But during all of that, they have these rights, so they're able to appeal that. In my situation, everything stayed the same. And then there's other ways of manipulating the system. I was hit with a false CPS case for now neglectful parenting. So first I was hit with too much medical, now not enough medical. That was open and shut.
And you would think that the court would see that.
Yeah.
You think the court would be like, well, can you say this and then you're saying this? What is it? So you think that the court would see right through his lies.
Exactly.
If that's what happened.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. And so that, that happened, and where I'm still very much in this, and so I was hit a couple of days ago with another thing. So I will be, we're supposed to be in mediation at this point. We're not. He has requested a jury trial for a common law divorce. And that's rare. It is very rare. There's only a handful of lawyers who will do this. I don't know if it's a scare tactic. I don't know if it's because he's lost to 2 judges, fake CPS case, open, closed. I don't, it's just part of the abuse, of like, why is this happening, but I was hit with, it looks like sometime in July, I will be going back to that courtroom. Family members are being pulled into this. False allegations are being pulled into this one. And it's just another thing. It's every time you go to court, it's $5,000 to $7,000 down here in Texas.
So can you tell us about an experience with sitting down with an advocate and going over a questionnaire where you kind of get a score? Can you talk about that, how that works?
Yes. And so I'll be honest, how it was you, because how I viewed it is I'm out. In January, he was out of the house. My daughter and I were safe. I have everything set up, all the precautions, everything. And so I did not want to take resources away. And that's how I was looking at it. I don't want to take resources away. I know there's other people who are still in it who need that help. But going through all of this, and this is where I learned about post-separation abuse. I was struggling. I lost my lawyer because I've been to court 2 times now. So we're looking at almost $20,000 in already with the 2 times going to court. We're going to court again sometime next month. And then jury trials cost $50,000 around about. And that's where I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And I, was venting with Nicole about all of this. And she's like, wait, I met this woman. Were y'all doing a talk in San Diego or San Francisco?
Mm-hmm. Yes, at a conference.
Yes. And they were like, they even told me, they're like, when we saw Nicole, we beelined and went straight for her because they wanted you to come down here and talk. And so I did. I met One Safe Place. They, if you are in Fort Worth, they are a good resource. Their intake process is very good. If you have a kid, or children that are with you, there's a daycare there and while you go through this process, and it's very comforting. There's a lot of security around. There's a lot of, just safety. Take your time, work through that. And then you are asked a series of questions of, have you been touched, physically by physical violence? Have you been sexually assaulted? Um, does your abuser take medications for any mental health? Have they, thought about suicide? Just they ask you all of these questions. Um, and then they go and put it into the system, and then it scores you. I'm a 23, so I am in the highest category um, of danger, and that does include my daughter too. And um, for me, it's almost like I knew it. I knew, but seeing it right there in black and white, it's like one of those boom, moments of like, how did I get here? Like, like how is this happening? But it is,
Yeah.
but it's,
Stephanie, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing this all with us.
thank
I mean,
you.
I know it's got to be really hard. It's got to be really hard to talk about it, but I'm sure getting it out too is helpful. I'm hoping.
Yes.
Yeah.
Knowing that what you're saying right now will help others, hopefully.
Yes. And that's why I want to talk about it, is because, as of right now, I have not filed any charges with the police. I have not requested any protection orders or restraining orders. There have been some comments made, some things done to me that I could and probably will, but I am also in that limbo of he won't stop coming after me and my family. And so even if I try to file this, he's going to turn this around and say, you're doing this out of spite, out of revenge, and it's like, I finally found my voice. I got us out safe. I can file these reports, these police reports, but he's going to spin it on me. And the other thing is I know, like, he's paying a lawyer to come after me, but there needs to be something that protects victims, because I get it. His lawyer is there to fight for him and him alone. But there needs to be a point of when you're addressing victims where you stop. There needs to be some sort of moral or ethical thing that where you just stop allowing the abuser to do this to their victim. But I have not experienced that. I have experienced the opposite of, like, let's do everything we can to just decimate her.
Yeah. I don't think I think it's very similar to what a lot of victims go through. And it's an unfortunate way that the system works, and it's very broken. And that's why these conversations are important, and getting our voices heard in the court systems, and the hospitals, the first responders, all the people that are involved in some of these cases need to understand it better, the dynamics, how it works, how abusers are easily manipulating people. And Bevin, while she was talking, I feel like you just had so many things to say. So please.
But you know what it is? It's also the level of narcissism and gaslighting that these abusers do. I have an example. A girl here in New York I know. Her husband threw all of her belongings out on the front lawn. She called the police twice. The police wouldn't do anything, and they told him that he couldn't do that. They're married, it's a marital residence, and she has to move back in. And he broke some of her furniture when he threw it out. Um, Fast forward a couple months later, they have another argument because they're also in mediation. What he wants is ridiculous. He wants her to leave the twins with him so he doesn't have to pay child support and he can keep the home, have her go to work all day, well, actually first come get the girls up and ready, take them to daycare, go to work all day, pick them up, bring them home, get them all ready for bed, feed them dinner, put them to bed, and then he'll be the dad. So they had an argument, and she broke an item in the house, the marital residence, marital property. And he called the police and they arrested her and he got an order of protection. And
But they didn't give her the order of protection against
they
him.
didn't even offer her. She could have gone to family court to get one, but she, I gave her the guidance and I did connect her with an agency to go to at the time. But in dealing with law enforcement, they were kind of like, no crime's been committed, but then all of a sudden she breaks $100 item and they're arresting her and charging her with a misdemeanor and he's getting an order of protection. And she didn't go home. Her lawyer's like, you have to go back. You can't leave the children. She's like, if I go back, he's going to lie and get me arrested. And he's going to keep doing that because he wants me out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So now she's doing what he wanted. He got what he wanted. She's not staying in the house, but she loves her children and she's a very good mother. And she's going and she's picking them up and she's taking them to daycare and she's taking care of them and then she drops them off in time for bed. And it's just, it goes to the level of gaslighting. I have another girlfriend who her ex tried to turn everybody on her when she was, ending the relationship and tried to tell people things about things she's done before, thinking that they would all walk away from her. And they didn't. They just try to gaslight so many people. Like even Megan's murderer, he tried to flip the switch at sentencing. I knew he was going to bring up the issues my daughter and I had in our relationship, and I've never denied our
Oh,
issues.
yeah, Bevin, let's back up a little bit because we're talking about post-separation abuse. Let's talk about Megan. What happened to Megan?
So my daughter was dating him. I won't even say his name. And he moved into her apartment and she was working and he was not. And things were not good. She had him arrested a couple of times. And on her birthday in 2021, right before her birthday, I believe it was the 26th of June, she called me and she was walking herself over to the hospital to check herself in because she felt suicidal. Things were really bad with him. And so we stayed on the phone till she got to the hospital. And then she called me from the hospital. The nurse called me from the hospital. And then he started blowing up her phone in the hospital. So she went back. She left, checked herself out, and she left and went back. And then fast forward, I don't even think it was a month later. He wouldn't leave. It was her apartment, her name. He was not on it. He refused to leave. And it's very hard in New York to get people out. People can squat in your house and you can't kick them out. So she left. She walked away from a car that they co-owned and a puppy that he had just bought her in May for her birthday. And she left. She came down here and she was staying at my mother's house. My mother was in a rehab because she had fallen and she was, in the process, she's elderly, so she's in the process of being in the rehab. And then he came down, I believe, in September with the car and the dog. And she says they weren't dating, that he was just staying there. And he would stay there a couple of nights and that he would stay someone else's house for a couple of nights. But that way she could use the car because she didn't have her own vehicle and she wanted her puppy. So that went on until the day he killed her. And on that day, she told him he had to leave. Her grandmother was coming home from rehab that week and he had to leave. And he told her that he had nowhere to go. And she told him, finally, that's not her problem. That's a him problem. And she had texted me that morning saying she wanted him to leave. He was giving her a hard time. She didn't want to call the police. Could I help? And I said, the only thing you can do is call the police. I can't make him leave. You have to call the police. And then I called her at 3:34 that afternoon, and she was so happy he was leaving. He had all stuff packed, and he was either going to leave that night or the next morning. And she was with her friend and went back to the house to get a credit card. And she had words with him, and she walked away and opened the door to get into the car. And he pulled her out of the car, jumped on her back, and he stabbed her 54 times. And she died on the front lawn of her grandmother's house. And it's just, like that goes into the post-separation. Like, she left, and he stayed in her apartment until the vigilance started. And he had no lives. He didn't work. And he just followed her down. He knew that dog would be the key to letting her let him back in. That was her baby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen
And,
pets are used quite often to lure.
Pets are very big.
Yeah.
And they're also, women have a hard time leaving because no shelters. There's very, very few shelters that will take pets. They just passed a bill in New York, I believe, for funding for more agencies, for more shelters to be able to take pets. Because for some people, they are the babies.
We've been having conversations about figuring out how to fund emergency shelter for animals coming out of domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
A temporary place to stay. It doesn't necessarily have to be a kennel or a shelter that takes animals. It could be a foster parent that's on call to take these animals in for however long is needed. And I think that every little way that we can help in some way get these survivors away from their abusers is another step to their survival, so that these murders don't continue. Because it seems to be when, like Stephanie was talking about, you're getting your power back a little bit, you've decided to leave, and that's when everything comes crashing down. So
it's because there's like a whole power and control wheel that Vibes has on one of the presentations we do. And it goes into, it's all about power and control. And that's when they're losing that power and they're losing that control. And that's when it becomes deadly, And the thing, circling back to the animals, is like the trauma that the animals are exposed to and that the animals see. The next day when I went to get her dog, because her dog was still in the house, and I went to get her dog, 6 months old, I guess he was about 6 months old, like literally crawled across on his belly because he was so scared. And the people who have him now, he doesn't live far from us. He's in a very loving home. And the people who have him said he's scared of men. He's scared of men because of what he saw.
Well, I know it's worth mentioning too, like what we're talking about, it's very important not to just get up and leave, right? There has to be planning in place.
You need a plan. You need a plan. Because my daughter never, ever saw that happening. Never. She thought he was going to leave, and that was it. She never saw that happening.
And was there any signs, if there were any signs beforehand of him being physically abusive?
Violet? Oh, yes. I have copies of police reports. I've even put them up on TikTok because he's on vacation for 25 to life, because that's what he said at the time of plea, that he was not running from killing her, but he was running because he wanted to go on a vacation. So he's on a state vacation for 25 to life. So I share the copies of the domestic reports on TikTok because they have to know. And the irony is that in New York, all the systems are not connected. All the state agencies, parole, independent police agencies, they're not connected. During one of the times that he attacked her and she filed a police report, he was on parole. And had that been an interconnected system, parole would have been notified that he was being charged with a domestic crime. and they could have violated him and reincarcerated him. So
You would
that's
think
one
that
of the,
in 2024 that the systems would work together, but
yeah, they don't.
they
They
don't.
don't. So that's one of the things I want to work on making mandatory. And I don't even think it has to be a bill. I think it's something the governor can do on her own.
But
But
it
there
should
should
cross
be
state
some central
lines too. It
database.
shouldn't just be because a
Yes,
lot of
it
times
should
what
cross
happens
state
is
lines.
they will take the break the family and bring it to another state and keep abusing, and now it's in another state. So the systems
Yep.
really don't talk.
I mean, all they have to do is mimic, I mean, our HIPAA. All of our doctors are electronically, they can pull up the files. It doesn't matter what state you're in, anything. All they do is just mimic that. And HIPAA is far more private, and your HIPAA rights are far more private and everything like that. So if they mimic even something similar to that, that's
Yeah. A
that would,
cohesive
There's something, it has
nationwide
to be
system.
done.
Yeah.
I would love to see, I mean, I know Nikki and we've talked about this, having some type of registry.
yes, we need
Mhm.
Because the problem too
And,
is
you know,
that
there
once
should
they
be.
stop abusing one victim, they're going to go to the next victim. They're never going to
Right.
stop. If they have a registry, I mean, you have all these online dating apps. If you have a registry, then you know who you're dating.
yes. Yep.
Right.
Because
No, there's something has to be done because they do leave state. They go state to state and many times. And even in the same state, I mean, all of our states are big. I mean, geographically, Texas, even, for example, is huge. Like, so you can go from one corner to the other corner of your state and nobody would know what you did.
Yeah.
yeah, and see, and that's the thing too is, even when your abuser leaves or moves on or whatnot, they don't really do that, So in my instance, he has moved on.
But he's still abusing you.
If that was the case, why is he still coming after me? Why is he still sending text messages to my family? Why, am I going to have to go to another court date in a month with more false accusations, bringing more family members into this? Like,
because it's a high for him.
Yes,
it's a high.
Yep.
They get high off of it.
And now it's dealing with him playing victim. He's trying to say that he feels unsafe. It's he's trying to flip the roles, saying it is I am the one who was the abusive person in the relationship and things of that nature. And so it's like, it's my fault for you putting hands on me.
And that's the importance of having these conversations, is just educating the public and understanding the dynamic, because these abusers will flip the script and they'll do it time and time again, and people are believing them, and we have to stop. We have to believe the victim.
Well, I wrote that article, The Science of Why We Go Back. Whenever you're in a abusive relationship, all of your neurochemicals, your just every your serotonin, your testosterone, all of that, it goes up and down because you're constantly checked into that fight mode. And so abuse does chemically mess you and your brain up where this becomes normal. And it's almost like you're seeking that oxytocin feeling, because that's what brings that bonds, that pleasure. And so you do everything that you can to make your abuser happy, to end that fight, to end that conflict, whatever that is, to get that feeling again. And then that feeling is usually, where you hear most of bonding with your babies during breastfeeding is where you hear oxytocin kicking in a lot, but it's the same thing. That's a form of bonding, and that activates as you're trying to pacify and keep your abuser happy, and then you're stuck in this vicious loop. And
it's a cycle.
I always say it's the bruising and the damage. It's on the inside. When it's emotional
Mhm.
abuse, it's gaslighting, it's manipulation, or financial. The abuse, the
Mhm.
bruises are in the inside, and you can't always see them, and that's why you tend to go back. And they know how to charm you too. They know how to say the right thing to get you to be like, oh, okay, and make you feel like you are the crazy one, like things didn't happen. They're very good at manipulating all the facts, where it's like all of a sudden it's like, wait. Sometimes if you have that wake up call where it's like, wait, no, this is not right anymore. And then that could become physical. There's all different stages, and it can happen at any point in time. I know that I'm not going to say who it is. It's a family member that was in a relationship, and they didn't start abusing the woman until, I'm going to say, 3-4 years into the marriage. They had no signs or nothing. They had no idea anything. And then they had their first child and got pregnant with the second child, and he beat her so badly that she had a miscarriage. We're still looking for that relationship that once was, and sometimes that's why you do stay, because you feel like it's that maybe that those things really didn't happen, but it is the bruises in the inside that cause you to maybe not realize or forget or not realize what actually transpired.
Yes.
And the one thing too with that is people have to realize that just because they don't hit you during the course of your marriage, even if it's emotional abuse or financial abuse, when you've had enough and you go to leave, it's still just as a deadly time. There doesn't have to be physical violence before that. That's why the plan in place is so important. So many times you read articles about where people had no idea because there was no physical violence, but something happened and the wife decided to leave or the husband decided to leave, and it resulted in a homicide.
Yeah, there's
So
been
that's
plenty of cases of where coercive control actually became a homicide, and typically because they were somebody was ending the marriage or the relationship at that point, and that's when they decided to take that life because they had no control anymore. It wasn't physical. So I think they did the study in the UK. There's more than we think with no previous physical violence at all. So yeah, it's scary, very scary.
With Tara, that's very much like mine didn't. There was some red flags, things like that, like cheating, things like that, in the beginning, but nothing. It took a good 3 years before things started getting a little intense, and that was more like financial, verbal, gaslighting, that sort of stuff. And then when my daughter came, it's almost like having her just amplified it. And that's when it started becoming scary. And
Really
like a weapon. Well, the weapon was pulled, and once that happened, it was, to me, it was, I have to have a plan in place, because if I tried to leave with my daughter, if that situation happened, me taking my daughter with me out of the house and leaving, it's, I have to have that.
Well, then if you take your daughter and leave out of the house, he can get you on kidnapping.
Exactly.
So that's the other issue.
Yep. And so you have to have that plan in place, because you can see how high or how far they will go just with their own perceptions and delusions and the reality that they created and things and like that. And, even then, much like your family member, it was always, how can I help them become who I thought that they were when I first got with them? I did a lot. I bought books. I sent sermons. I like therapy, like everything, because it was embarrassing with Marissa. When Marissa happened 2.5 years ago now, that was my wake up call. like I was trying so hard to get the person that who I thought once was there back. And then Marissa was my wake up call, and writing that article, that the science of why we go back. That was it, because I went through that research phase of it. My degree is in psychology, and getting back to that, and looking at everything and learning the science behind it. And I was like, it was like a light bulb moment for me. And I'm like, okay, all right, I got to do this. Like, I got to get out of here. I got to get this plan in place. And I did have a couple of plans, and that was caught on too. And so then you have to kind of pivot, navigate, and things of that nature. And until you execute it perfectly, or, in my case, I outed myself, and that I have years of proof, and he exited. And so, thankfully on my side, he removed himself from the house with an affair. But that's the best way possible for me, to me, because, I don't know. I always say God took out the trash for me as I was busy trying to, keep everything together and protected and everything like that. It is not talked about enough of like what happens, how deadly it is when you decide to leave and when you decide to exit, but what they can do to you after, how they can still track you, that they can abuse our justice, our judicial system, our state resources like CPS, but the best thing that I can tell anybody and everybody is evidence. When that weapon was pulled on me, that's all I did was collect evidence. From that point on till now, I collected the evidence and screenshots and everything. And that has been my saving grace through all of this, is when he tries to lie about something or change the story or the narrative, I have the real story in his own words. And that's where it's protecting me from all of these false allegations, everything. I record everything. And that's the biggest thing that you can do, is even after, record everything, save it.
I think we should do a whole thing on digital safety and planning for sure. That's a lot of stuff that we could talk about there.
Yeah. And then
planning is so important.
Yeah, it would probably be a good thing too, about how, because victims often don't have money. Money is an issue for me right now.
Well, that's how they get you too. It's the financial control. So they have all the money, and then I mean, I liked how you said, I didn't even think about it, to get the gift cards.
Yes. Yeah. And
that's a great idea.
To slow. Whose idea was that? Where did you?
Stephanie's.
It's just, as you're grocery shopping, even if it's $20 there, if you're given a limit, if you can get some couponing or get stuff on sale, it frees up some more money, and you can get keep you under budget if there is a budget in place or whatnot, and just slowly build that up. Find a good hiding spot for it. Even if you have to do like a false bottom to something outside on a back porch, so it's outside of the house, or you leave it with a friend or a family member or something, so that way if they stumble over it, they're not like, what is this? You have almost like a go bag separately, whether it's outside of the house, at a friend, families, you've got that to fall back on, and when in my situation, for about 3 months, all money was taken and moved, and that was my source of buying food for me and my child, and things of that nature. And
because you can reach out to shelters, and unless you're living there, they don't really. Or you can reach out to the hotline, and unfortunately, they cannot help you financially to help you leave.
Yes. Yep.
You have to unfortunately find other means or other ways
Right.
to get around those hurdles.
Yes. And then checking into that warrior mindset, that could be another talk too of, if you can't afford to get self-defense classes or things like that. And I know me and you, Nicole, talked about that of like, things in the future, but
We would love to get a self-defense,
yes,
like a class going or something.
so we get
Yeah.
through it on, we could do videos, where victims can sit there and watch. My biggest takeaway is, and I've done this, when my daughter was away, my daughter knows nothing about it. I've shielded her from everything that's happened since, leaving and everything. But when she was out of the house, this is when you walk your house. You got to think that at any time, any window or door is a place of entry. And so walk around your house. So for example, when you walk in my house in the foyer, there's big old heavy candlesticks. So and this is even like a single woman living alone, not in a domestic violence, but being stalked by somebody, walk your house. So for me, I can walk in my house 3 steps back. There's a heavy candlestick that I can get and hit. I take 2 more steps back. There's an iron cross on my TV stand, that I can use. But the main goal is just get them incapacitated, jump out a window, jump out of a, run out your back door, front door, go to a neighbor for help. And then of course, if your state supports, gun rights and things like that, and then you're the person that's comfortable, then you can do that. But, it's just walking around, because you never know when somebody can come in. And even if you do have that, and do believe in using guns and things of that nature, you can still be caught off guard in your own house. You have it put up in a safe or something. You still want to look around and see what you can use. And it's just trying to check into that. I always like to call it the warrior mindset, but it really is your fighting instinct of.
Well, didn't they just pass the law too about domestic abusers are not allowed to get their guns back? So that was really good.
Yes, they upheld that, which I mean, the fact that we even had to take that to the United States Supreme Court is insanity.
Yeah,
because if someone's an abuser and they have a firearm, you have to go up.
Yeah.
It's
I think that's where registries can help, nationwide cohesive registries, so that we know who's who, and
it
would be very helpful.
Yeah.
Well, because they have that for gun laws, don't they? Like, you can't buy a gun in one state if you have a criminal record in another state. So they already have that established.
Yeah.
It's not a hard thing to. It's not a hard thing to do.
But criminal law and family law, they don't connect.
Yeah, I've even told that when it comes to getting a protection order, I said, do I need to get a copy of my, assessment of my score of 23? Oh, no, we don't use that in regards to getting a protection order. So they don't even view that test as a component to assist in a protection order. And that blew my mind too. I was so mind blown whenever I said, hey, do I need to get a copy of this? And, oh, no, we don't look at that. We don't use that. That doesn't play into the factor. And I was like, wow, like, I just had no idea. I didn't grab a copy of mine, but I can. But what is it called? It can go by a couple of names, but it is the domestic violence assessment. And it assesses you, like, with the questionnaires and what has happened within the relationship, and then it scores you. And I don't know, I think, is it 25 is the highest score, or I would have to, even though it is a little bit hard and embarrassing, for me, because I've been helping in secret for 2 years. I don't care. I don't feel embarrassed. Why I know so much about it is because I was living it.
Yeah.
And it just needs to be talked about, because that's
Well,
how
thank
we
you.
face the next one.
I think this is all about breaking the silence, and I think
Mhm.
we definitely did that within this session right now.
Mhm.
I think we got a lot of informative information out there, and like Nikki said, hopefully, if it can save one more life, that's one more life. I mean,
Exactly.
hopefully, it can save more than one, but I mean, I think the more we talk about it, the more we bring these issues up to light, and put the shame back on on the abuser, not on the victim. So,
Yeah.
It's important to have these conversations to get rid of the stigma.
yes,
Yes.
Yep.
It's always been that, hide it. That's
Mhm.
you talking about it, because that's happened to me. You talking about it, it makes you look like you're seeking pity. And it's like, no, I don't want pity. I want the opposite. I want you to see that I've gone through this, and this is what's going on, or how this is how I've deterred this, or whatever it may be. And it's just education. It's just me wanting somebody who may be in it to see it, because it does open that. And what people don't see is the private messages that you get saying, this really helps me, or I didn't know this, or whatever it may be. And but that stigma is still very much there. You are right.
Yeah.
if someone takes one piece of advice from this, like you said, get the gift cards, then that could help them.
So telling these stories is definitely a strength, not a weakness. When somebody gets to that level and that point, and everybody's different, but once you are able to tell your story, it really can help people. So I appreciate both of you, and I'm sure we'll talk again. Well, yeah. So let me end the recording. Bye, guys. Bye, everybody.
Bye.